Do you know what betrayal feels like? Not the kind you read in books or see in films. I mean the kind that burns deep in your chest, where every breath feels like a knife. I never thought it would come from my own daughter, the very girl I carried in my arms, the one whose fever I sat beside all night, the one I gave up food for so she could eat. My story begins on an ordinary morning. I was sitting in this very armchair, sipping my tea, staring at the family photographs on the wall. The fire was crackling in the fireplace, and for a brief moment I felt safe. But that safety, it was a lie. I had lived in that house for over 40 years. Every corner had a memory. The kitchen where my husband used to kiss me on the cheek while I cooked. The stairs my daughter would run down in her school uniform. The garden where I planted roses for every birthday. That house wasn't just bricks and wood. It was my soul. But sometimes when you trust too much, you don't see the storm until it rips everything apart. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Whitfield, who first hinted at it. She knocked on my door one afternoon, holding her grocery bags. "Congratulations," she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I heard your daughter finally found buyers. Must be bittersweet, huh?" My cup of tea slipped from my hands. The hot liquid burned my skin, but my heart burned even more. "Buyers?" I asked. "What buyers?" She looked puzzled. "For your house, dear. Didn't she tell you?" "No, she didn't." That night, I waited for my daughter to visit. And she did, walking in as if nothing was wrong, her handbag swinging from her arm, her perfume filling the room. She kissed me on the cheek, "Hi, Mom," as though she were still my little girl. But I knew something had changed. I watched her, my stomach twisting. Should I ask? Should I stay silent? My hands trembled in my lap. Finally I whispered, "Sweetheart, someone told me the house has been sold." "That can't be true, can it?" Her smile froze. Her eyes flickered just for a moment, before she laughed nervously. "Oh, Mom, don't listen to gossip. People always talk. But a mother knows." The way her hand clenched her purse, the way she avoided my gaze, I knew. My daughter was lying to me. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, the tick-tock of the clock pounding in my ears. What would make her do this? Was she in trouble? Did she need money? Or was I just a burden now? The next morning I decided to find out myself. My hand shook as I dialed the number of the local property office. "Hello, this is Mrs. Miller. I just want to confirm. Has my house been listed for sale?" The voice on the other end was calm. "Yes, ma'am. It's already been sold. Finalized just last week." "Congratulations." Congratulations. That word felt like poison. How could they congratulate me when I hadn't even known? I hung up the phone and sat in silence. My daughter had gone behind my back. My home, the only place that carried my husband's memory, my life's work, was no longer mine. And I hadn't even been told. Audience, let me ask you this. If the person you trusted most betrayed you like this, what would you do? Would you confront them, forgive them, or cut them out forever? Tell me in the comments, because I truly didn't know what to do. That evening my daughter returned. She found me sitting by the window, the papers from the property office still in my hands. When she saw them, her face drained of color. "Why, Anna?" My voice cracked. "Why would you do this to me? This is my home, your father's home. How could you sell it without even telling me?" She opened her mouth, closed it again. Her eyes shimmered with tears, but I saw something else there too, fear. "Mom, I didn't want to upset you. Things are complicated. Please just trust me." "Trust you?" My voice rose, echoing through the room. "You've already taken the one thing I could never replace." For the first time in years I saw my daughter look small, almost like a little girl again. But the damage was already done. That night I went to bed clutching an old photo of my husband, tears soaking the pillow. I whispered into the darkness, "If only you were here, maybe she wouldn't have done this. Maybe she wouldn't have betrayed me." But he wasn't there. And neither was my home, not anymore. The next morning the house felt different. Cold. Hollow. As if the walls themselves knew they no longer belonged to me. I woke up before dawn, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the floorboards that had carried my life for decades. Every creak, every scratch, every faded spot in the wood was part of me. But now it was someone else's property. I shuffled into the kitchen, made myself tea, and sat quietly at the table. My daughter hadn't called. Not even a message. After last night's confrontation, she vanished like a shadow. For hours I sat replaying everything in my mind. Why had she done this? Was it greed? Was it desperation? Or was it something darker? By noon I couldn't take the silence anymore. I grabbed my cardigan, tied it tightly around me, and walked to the bus stop. The property office wasn't far. If my daughter wouldn't tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. When I walked in, the receptionist looked up with that polite smile that hides more than it reveals. "How can I help you, ma'am?" I swallowed hard. "I'm here about the sale of my house on Willow Lane. My daughter handled it. But I need details." Her fingers danced across the keyboard. "Yes, the sale has gone through. The buyer is set to move in within 3 weeks. 3 weeks. My chest tightened. And where am I supposed to go? The woman's face softened, but she still spoke with that rehearsed tone. That would have to be arranged with your daughter. She signed all the paperwork as your representative. Representative. The word cut me. My daughter had signed as if she were me, as if my voice didn't matter. I turned to leave, but the woman added, I probably shouldn't say this, but your daughter looked upset when she signed. Almost desperate. Maybe she thought she was helping you. Helping me? By throwing me out of my own home? I walked out into the cold afternoon, the sky heavy with clouds. My legs felt weak, but I kept walking. I needed answers. I needed my daughter to look me in the eye and tell me why. When I arrived at her house, she was just pulling into the driveway. Her car door slammed shut, and she froze when she saw me standing there. "Mom!" Her voice cracked. "You shouldn't be here." "Why, Anna? Why would you do this? Tell me the truth." She looked around nervously, as if the neighbors might hear. "Please, not here. Come inside." Inside, her house smelled of fresh paint and expensive candles. Everything was spotless, perfect, but it didn't feel like home. Felt like a show. We sat at her dining table. She kept fidgeting with her hands, twisting her wedding ring round and round. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't sell the house for me, Mom. I sold it because I had no choice." My heart dropped. "What do you mean, no choice? You always have a choice." She shook her head violently. "You don't understand. I was drowning in debt. Credit cards, loans, bills piling up. They were going to take my house, Mom. My children would have nowhere to live. I had to do something." Her words pierced me like daggers. She hadn't thought of me. She hadn't thought of the years I'd spent building that home. She had only thought of herself. "You could have asked me," I whispered. "You could have told me the truth. I would have helped you." Her eyes filled with tears. "I was ashamed, Mom. I couldn't let you see how badly I messed up. And then I realized your house was worth enough to cover everything. It seemed like the only way." The room spun around me. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. My daughter, my flesh and blood, had taken everything I had worked for, just to fix her own mistakes. I stared at her, searching her face for the little girl I once knew. The one who used to braid my hair, who used to say, "Mommy, I'll take care of you forever." But that little girl was gone. In her place was a woman I didn't recognize. "You didn't just sell a house," I said, my voice trembling. "You sold my memories. You sold your father's legacy. You sold my life, Anna." She broke down then, sobbing into her hands. For a moment my heart softened. She was still my daughter after all. But then the anger returned, sharper than before. Because love without respect is nothing. That night I returned home, but it no longer felt like home. I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, the furniture, the photographs. I tried to memorize everything before it was gone. When I reached the bedroom, I opened the closet and pulled out an old wooden box. Inside were letters, love letters from my husband, school drawings from Anna, little tokens of a life once so full of love. I sat on the bed and cried until my body ached. The next morning I made a decision. If my daughter thought she could take everything from me without consequence, she was wrong. I wasn't some weak, helpless old woman. I had lived too long, survived too much, to let my own child erase me. I would find a way to fight back. But the question was how? The following days were a blur of restless nights and heavy thoughts. I walked through my home as if I were a guest, tiptoeing around memories that no longer belonged to me. But the more I thought about my daughter's words, the more they gnawed at me. Dead. That couldn't be the whole truth. One evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched across the walls, I picked up the phone and called an old family friend, Mr. Harris, a retired lawyer who had known me and my late husband for decades. "Margaret," he said warmly, though his voice quickly turned concerned when he heard the tremble in mine. "What's wrong?" I told him everything. The sale. Anna's confession. My confusion. He sighed heavily. "I can look into the paperwork for you. If she sold it, there will be records. And perhaps," he hesitated then added, "perhaps there's more than she's telling you." That night I sat by the fire waiting, every tick of the clock feeling like a hammer against my chest. Finally the phone rang again. "Margaret," his tone was grave, "I need you to listen carefully. The debts, yes, they exist. But that wasn't the real reason she rushed the sale." My grip tightened on the receiver. "Then what was it?" "Your daughter, she's been tied up with people she shouldn't be. Some dangerous individuals. I believe she sold the house because they were threatening her. She used your property to settle something much darker than unpaid bills." The room seemed to tilt. Dangerous individuals? My Anna? No, not my daughter. She may have made mistakes, but she wasn't reckless. She wasn't involved with people like that. "Are you certain?" I whispered. "As certain as I can be. Margaret, I'm afraid she's in trouble far deeper than you realize." I set the phone down slowly, my heart racing. My daughter had betrayed me, yes, but was she also in danger? I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. Memories of Anna as a child flooded my mind, her laughter echoing through the garden, her tiny hand gripping mine tightly, her voice saying, "Don't worry, Mommy, I'll never leave you." And now here we were. She had left me in the cruelest way possible. Yet somehow I couldn't stop worrying for her. The next day I decided to confront her again. Not with anger this time, but with a demand for truth. When I arrived at her house, I noticed something unsettling. Her curtains were drawn tight, her car was parked awkwardly as if she had rushed home, and the lights inside flickered nervously. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. Finally, the door creaked open and Anna stood there, her face pale, her eyes swollen from crying. "Mom, you can't be here," she whispered, almost panicked. "Anna, please," I said firmly. "I know more than you told me. I spoke to Mr. Harris. I know it's not just debts. Who are you hiding from?" Her lips trembled. She glanced behind her shoulder before pulling me inside and locking the door. Her living room was a mess, papers scattered, half-packed bags on the floor. It looked like she was preparing to run. They told me if I didn't pay, they'd come after the kids," she said, her voice breaking. "I didn't know what else to do, Mom. I couldn't let them hurt my children." My chest tightened. She had been protecting them all along. Yes, she had destroyed me in the process, but fear makes people desperate. "Anna," I said softly, "who are they?" She shook her head. "You don't want to know." "Of course I do. I'm your mother. Do you think I can sleep knowing my daughter and grandchildren are in danger? Tell me." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "They're loan sharks, Mom. I borrowed money when my husband lost his job. I thought I could pay it back, but the interest kept growing. They threatened us, threatened to burn our house down to take the kids. I panicked. And when I saw how much your house was worth, Her words trailed off, but the meaning hung heavy in the air. I felt as though the floor had dropped beneath me. My daughter wasn't just selfish. She was terrified, cornered like an animal. And in her desperation, she sacrificed me. For a moment, silence filled the room. Only the ticking of the clock reminded us time was still moving. Then I asked her something that had been clawing at me since the moment I found out. "Anna, did you ever stop to think what would happen to me? Where I would go? Or did you believe I was too strong to break?" She flinched, her face crumbling with guilt. I thought you'd hate me, yes. But I also thought you'd survive. You always do, Mom. You've always been stronger than anyone I know. I thought I could take from you because you'd find a way to stand again." Her words sliced through me. To her, my strength had become a reason to hurt me. I stood there, trembling, torn between fury and compassion. She had betrayed me, yes. But she was still my child. And she was drowning. That night, as I walked back to my home that wasn't mine anymore, a thought struck me. Maybe losing my house wasn't the end of my story. Maybe it was the beginning of a fight I never expected. For my dignity. For my memories. For my daughter's soul. But I needed a plan. And for that, I needed courage. So I ask you, my dear listener, if someone you loved betrayed you in the worst way, but you found out they were suffering, would you forgive them? Or would you walk away forever? That night I sat awake in the small rented room I now called home, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint hum of the street outside. My heart was torn between two voices, one whispering, "She betrayed you, she deserves nothing," and the other pleading, "She is your daughter and she is drowning." I pressed my palms together as if in prayer, though no words came. Only memories. Anna as a little girl, running through the garden with her hair tied in ribbons. Anna crying on my shoulder the day she lost her first love. Anna beaming with pride when she first held her newborn baby. And then the Anna of today, broken, desperate, a shadow of the child I once knew. Could I turn my back on her completely? Could I abandon her children, my grandchildren, who had no fault in this nightmare? At dawn I made my decision. I put on my shawl, tied my hair neatly in its bun, and walked to Mr. Harris's office. He looked up in surprise as I entered, his kind old eyes scanning my face. "Margaret," he said softly, "I didn't expect you so early." "I need your help," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Not just for me but for Anna. She's in trouble, and if I do nothing she may lose everything, including her children. I won't let that happen." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "What do you have in mind?" "I want to fight," I said simply. "I want to fight for my daughter, even if she doesn't deserve it. And I want to fight for myself, because I am not going to let her betrayal be the end of my story." He leaned back in his chair. "It won't be easy. Loan sharks don't let go easily. And getting your house back may be impossible." I swallowed hard. I don't need the house back. I need to save her soul, and protect the children. Together we began forming a plan. Mr. Harris had connections, people who could negotiate with dangerous men in ways I could not. It would take time, patience, and yes, courage I wasn't sure I had. But when you're a mother, courage isn't optional. It's a duty. That evening I returned to Anna's home. She opened the door with wary eyes, expecting perhaps another scolding. But I didn't scold her. I didn't even raise my voice. Instead, I took her trembling hands in mine. "Anna, listen to me. You made a terrible mistake. You broke my heart. But you're still my daughter. And I will not stand by and watch you be destroyed. From this moment forward we fight together. Do you understand?" Her lip quivered as she nodded, fresh tears spilling. "Mom, I don't deserve this." "No," I whispered, "you don't. But love isn't about what we deserve. It's about what we choose to give." For the first time in weeks I saw a spark of hope in her eyes. The weeks that followed were a storm. Meetings with Harris. Sleepless nights. Whispered warnings. Tense encounters with men whose eyes were cold and unforgiving. At times I wanted to collapse, to give in, to let it all swallow me. But every time I saw Anna holding her children close, or heard my grandson laugh, I found strength I didn't know I had. And slowly, miraculously, things began to shift. Debts were renegotiated. Payments arranged. The shadow of danger began to recede, though it never fully disappeared. I never got my house back. That chapter of my life was over. The rooms where I had once cooked, laughed, and prayed were no longer mine. And yes, that loss still stung like a knife. But something else happened, something I never expected. My daughter changed. One evening she sat across from me at her kitchen table, her face pale but determined. "Mom," she said, "I want you to know I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you. I stole your home, I stole your peace, but I will not steal your dignity. You will always have mine." And then for the first time in years she leaned forward and laid her head in my lap, just as she had when she was a little girl. I stroked her hair gently, my tears falling onto her scalp. "Anna," I whispered, "you broke my heart, but you also reminded me of its strength. A heart that can forgive is far stronger than one that only knows bitterness. I don't know if I will ever forget the betrayal. Perhaps I never should. But I do know this: love is more powerful than anger. And sometimes when the storm passes, the ones who broke you are the same ones who need you most. So, my dear listener, let me ask you, If the person who hurt you the most came back, not with excuses, but with tears in their eyes and regret in their voice, would you open your arms? Or would you close the door forever? That choice is the one that defines us. And me? I chose love.